Chapter 10, Unwanted Legacies. The more people I interviewed for this book, the more I became convinced that theirs were powerful stories of triumph over loss. These were not lives characterized by damage and defined by pathology. And yet I could not ignore that there were some who struggled less successfully with demons from the past, and a greater number who had to fight sporadic battles with feelings of emptiness and insecurity throughout their lives. In her poem entitled Self-Portrait I, Danish poet Tove Ditlevsen describes the person she has become as a result of the early death of both her mother and father. I cannot cook, wear a hat, make people comfortable, wear jewelry, arrange flowers, remember appointments, thank others for gifts, tip correctly, keep a man, show interest at meetings for parents. I cannot stop smoking, drinking, eating chocolate, stealing umbrellas, oversleeping, forgetting to remember birthdays, and to clean my nails, telling people what they want to hear, giving away secrets, liking strange places and sociopaths. I can be alone, wash dishes, read books, form sentences, listen, and be happy without guilt. Although Ditlevsen lived courageously and productively for many years, she eventually took her own life. Her poem is a record not only of what she was able to do, but more important, of all the things she felt she could not do, the permanent and unwanted legacy of her early loss. All of the long-term destructive effects of early death derive from a child's attempt to master his or her experience of absolute catastrophe and the feeling of profound emptiness and insecurity that follow. At first, this may seem paradoxical. How can an attempt to master something painful lead to a negative outcome? Imagine for a moment, however, trying to swat a fly with a hammer. You may successfully kill the fly, but you destroy the furniture in the process. Problematic attempts at mastery fall into three broad categories: emotional numbing, recurrent anxiety and depression, and the development of destructive explanatory myths or metaphors. In the first case, the individual feels so overwhelmed by painful and chaotic feelings that survival demands those feelings be blocked out. Some consciously develop an air of detachment toward their own lives, never feeling either pain or joy very deeply again. Others blot out memories of the past in an attempt to remove the source of their pain. And still others use drugs and alcohol to achieve oblivion. In each case of numbing, however, the individual believes that to feel the pain of emptiness and the chaos of insecurity would be intolerable. For those who live with recurrent anxiety and depression, the peace they desire seems out of reach. Regardless of how hard they try, they seem unable to prevent anxiety and depression from breaking through their defenses. Even when they feel happy and free of despair, they are often uneasy, fearful of the next time that they will be flooded by feelings from the past. Some construct a story or employ a metaphor to help them find their way out of the chaos that follows early loss. In some cases, these explanations are relatively benign and become incorporated into one's personal mythology. In other cases, the story that serves to explain is also destructive. Child uses an image, often one of blame, which then interferes with the leading of a full life. The first topic here on page 245 is varieties of numbing. We're still in the book The Loss That Is Forever by Maxine Harris PhD. Varieties of numbing. When she was taken to the bedside of her dead mother, Virginia Woolf remembers saying to herself, "I feel nothing whatever." Her conscious deadening of her own response was a defense that Woolf used throughout her life to control whatever felt painful and overwhelming. Woolf was conscious and aware that she was stifling her own feelings by exerting enormous control and force of will to prevent herself from experiencing pain. Charles Darwin, whose mother died when he was 8, used less conscious strategies of numbing to dull his own anguish. Darwin used a combination of forgetfulness, hard work, and emotional distancing to bury the feelings he could not master or control. Darwin's biographer, John Bowlby, suggests that Darwin's family encouraged him to forget his mother by never mentioning her name or discussing her death. Later in his life, Darwin wrote, "When my mother died, I was 8.5 years old, and Catherine, his sister, 1 year less, yet she remembers all particulars and events of each day, whilst I scarcely recollect anything, except being sent for the memory of going into her room, my father meeting me, crying afterwards. I recollect my mother's gown and scarcely anything of her appearance, except 1 or 2 walks with her. I have no distinct remembrance of any conversation, and those only of a very trivial nature." The tonic of forgetfulness has indeed worked its magic when years later Darwin wrote to a friend whose wife had died, "Never in my life having lost one near relation, I dare say I cannot imagine how severe grief such as yours must be." For Charles Darwin, the primary route to forgetfulness and to the dulling of his own pain and anxiety was work, and more work. Despite his obvious success at points in his life, when Darwin felt insecure, he would repeat to himself the words, "I have worked as hard as I could, and no man can do more than this." Work was his salvation, and the primary means of distracting himself from the emotional pain of the early death of his mother. I'd like to get the whole place, but when Darwin finally made the decision to marry, he weighed the pros and cons as might a dispassionate scientist. Feelings and emotions long numbed in Darwin's psyche were not a factor in his decision to wed. Despite his not wanting to live his life as what he called a neutered bee, Darwin worried that marriage would entail expense, anxiety about children, quarreling, and most certainly, loss of time for his work. Darwin eventually chose to marry and found great comfort in his relationship to his wife, a nurturing woman to whom he came to refer to as Mammy. Throughout his life, Darwin feared that his anxieties would become uncontrollable and that even his compulsive work habits would be unable to contain them. Despite his attempts to numb himself, Darwin suffered from a lifelong struggle with serious gastrointestinal ailments, many of which appeared to be psychosomatic in origin. He believed that his weak constitution was inherited from his mother and would eventually cause his own death. His recurrent stomach pains may well have been the reflection of a buried feelings gurgling to the surface. Donna, one of the women I interviewed, spent most of her childhood caring for her invalid mother. She felt that if she had not been able to numb herself, she would not have been able to survive. My whole life was focused on her, my mother. I had no choice to focus on myself or to think at all about my future. I just grew up too fast. In high school, she recalls that friends complimented her for being so laid back and easygoing. She may well have appeared calm to outsiders, but inside, she felt as if she was living in a trance. In truth, I had no energy to worry about anything. She was not calm as her classmates imagined. She was drained and numb. Despite all of the energy it took to control her feelings, Donna did well in school, especially in math and science. Subjects she could master while maintaining her air of emotional distance. She could excel without having a personal response. Whenever I felt something, especially the anger, I just blocked it out. I was able to do that at a very young age. I hid the fact that the family wasn't normal, and I pretended to myself that I was growing up like everyone else. I was a pretty good actor, and I could block the feelings that I had. Sometimes I think I acted so well, I almost fooled myself. Excuse me. Throughout her adolescence, Donna developed a style of never expressing any feelings. She wanted to be free of the pain, but she had another reason for banishing her feelings. Emotions, they seemed pointless to her. There was no one there who could hear her concerns, so why express them at all? In late adolescence, Donna found that taking drugs and drinking wine could help the process of numbing. She went through a period of several years during which she used chemicals to help her not feel her feelings. Numbing, while useful in helping her to survive many of the stresses of childhood, has proven to be an unwanted legacy for Donna as she enters adulthood. In the last several years, Donna has developed a chronic illness that demands she accurately read the responses of her own body. Her illness can only be managed if she modulates her day-to-day behavior in response to subtle cues that emanate from inside her body. Cues that she might acknowledge and label correctly. At first, Donna found that she read herself poorly. She could not tell when she was feeling ill until she was so sick that she had to miss weeks of work. She had learned so well to be oblivious to the feelings that came from inside herself that she could not help ignoring them, even when it meant seriously compromising her own health. Initially, Donna tried to learn about the nuances of her physical responses on her own. Eventually, she had to seek the assistance of a behavioral counselor to help her begin to recognize and acknowledge her own body's internal language. Donna is now learning a whole new vocabulary, a language of feelings and sensations that she had successfully numbed in girlhood. As she finds herself, in C.S. Lewis's words, melting like a snowman, She is also discovering a whole range of other feelings that have been frozen for years. Donna is learning how to recognize her annoyance and frustration with others and to set limits on the demands her friends and colleagues make of her. In the past, it never even occurred to Donna that she might have legitimate feelings about requests others made of her. If someone made a request, she just assumed that she had to do their bidding and ignore or suppress how she really felt. As she begins to attend to her own responses, Donna is allowing herself a much broader range of expression. She is also learning how to have open disagreements and even fights with her husband. I'm learning that my feelings matter. I can say how I feel and it doesn't have to turn into a disaster. Had it not been for her potentially life-threatening illness, Donna might have gone through her entire life numbed and closed off to the feelings she held inside. Just as she chose to survive as a girl by moving out of her father's house and finally opting for her own life over the life of her mother. Donna now, once again, has chosen her own survival. She has learned to feel because to do otherwise would mean to risk her very existence. For some individuals, numbing assumes the form of what they call callousness or cold realism. They are unable to allow themselves the luxury of having tender or soft feelings for anyone. Several people described what they termed their own impatience at the weakness or vulnerabilities of others. They felt intolerant of what often appeared to be the trivial complaints of their friends. When people related to me what they considered trivial, their assessments were sometimes accurate. At other times, however, they labeled as trivial what many of us might consider quite serious: divorce, illness, the loss of a job. Yet these individuals felt themselves unable or unwilling to be bothered with other people's problems. One man described how he consciously distanced himself from people who either might need extra support or have plans to move to another city. He felt unable and unwilling to invest emotional energy in anyone who might be a source of future pain for him. Another man marveled at his own ability to turn his back on acquaintances who moved away or were merely out of sight for a time. Gone is gone. I have no time for people who are not in my life. At times he worried that he might prematurely push someone away. Yet mostly he saw his own distancing as a necessary protection against future and further pain. Still, another man felt somewhat uneasy about what friends had termed his callousness. He remarked, "I guess my edges are just a bit sharper." People sometimes saw him as tactless when, for example, he correctly labeled the seriousness of certain life and death situations. Death is a reality. We are all going to die. It's not something we can pretend isn't going to happen. Although his need to keep people at a distance and his somewhat tactless style caused friends to see him as cold, inside he felt himself to be soft and vulnerable. People don't know it, but I spend time worrying about my cat. His tender side remains hidden from even those to whom he is most close. Hidden because he cannot bear the pain of further hurt and disappointment. One particular form psychic numbing takes is substance abuse, when an individual is unable to dull the pain of loss simply by forgetting. compulsive activity, or emotional distancing, he or she finds that the oblivion is brought on only by alcohol or other drugs. We're going to stop here. We're on page 250. The next one will be Hugh's story, and it's still in the same vein of emotional numbing. Right, varieties of numbing. There we go. So the next one will begin with Hugh's story as we continue chapter 10. Thank you for being with me. I appreciate you.